I do have some things that I want to get to with you guys. I have some things that are on the docket. The Packers game is pretty much behind us. We pretty much unpacked that game as many ways as we possibly could have, and now we have the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons on the horizon, right? So that's going to be a game that's going to be really interesting. The Philadelphia Eagles make their return to Lincoln Financial Field after flying over 9 hours to Brazil, right? And quite frankly, that week 1 win was a big win for the Eagles. I would say it was a big deal. We know the game started off pretty much as a struggle for the Philadelphia Eagles on offense. That is, the defense did the best they could, but regardless, they found a way to win the game. They found a way to win the game. The offense came alive in the second and third quarter, and they pretty much never looked back since. And this was a big game for the Philadelphia Eagles. I understand it was week 1, but the game had value. The game has value because it's in conference. You beat an NFC opponent. On top of that, this NFC opponent is likely a team that you may see on the road to a Super Bowl championship. This is a team you may face. This is a team you may see. And likely they'll be better at that point in the season than they were in week 1. Granted, their quarterback is going through whatever injury he has to go through. But regardless, I think Green Bay is going to be there at some point in the end. Maybe they come in as a wild card team because, Jordan Love is going to miss about 3 to 6 weeks. Maybe they come in as a wild card team. And I would imagine Green Bay is not going to push him back too far or try to rush him back. So I think what we're looking at here is we're looking at a situation where Green Bay definitely is probably going to be a wild card team. They can still win their division. The Lions, as of right now, are ahead. They're tied with the Bears. I think the Bears are going to be a little bit better. Obviously, Caleb is going through his rookie situation, but I think the Bears are going to be better. I think Detroit is going to be good. Green Bay is going to be good. Minnesota already has a win. That division is going to be more interesting than we thought. But regardless, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Green Bay Packers. They likely will see them at some point later down the line. So I say all that to say that win had value. That win had tremendous value for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you got the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons. And look, I want to try my hardest to be as fair as possible when talking about the Atlanta Falcons. But the Atlanta Falcons are coming off of an ugly loss to the Justin Fields led Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Russell Wilson was supposed to be the starter. Russell Wilson's been dealing with a calf injury, but Justin Fields was the starter, and he led the Pittsburgh Steelers to an 18-10 victory over the Atlanta Falcons on the Atlanta Falcons home turf. So I say that to say the Atlanta Falcons struggled. They lost to the kicker of the Steelers. The kicker. The Steelers couldn't score a touchdown. But somehow, some way, the Falcons lost 18-10. And again, I openly admit that the Eagles stumbled early in week 1. And Jalen Hurts has things he has to clean up. Do not get me wrong. He has things he has to clean up, and we're going to discuss that. We're going to break that down later on in the show. But even through the struggle early on, even through stumbling in the first quarter, the Eagles turned the tide and ended up going up to win the game 34-29. They put up 34 points. They put up 34 points by accident. And they were playing great red zone defense. So you had some things to hang your hat on. When it comes to the Falcons, granted, the Falcons defense, they did not give up a single touchdown in that game. That Falcons defense did not give up a single touchdown to the Steelers. Granted, the Steelers offense is very limited right now. They only gave up 18 points, and they didn't give up a single touchdown. But that Falcons offense couldn't carry their weight, not one bit. And they struggled to put up 10 points. And I watched that game from beginning to end because we're going to play the Steelers at one point. We're going to play the Falcons this week. I wanted to see how those teams performed. And the Falcons just looked anemic. There were moments where you thought they could move the ball, but then Kirk Cousins just looked limited. I didn't like his decision making. And then as far as the Steelers go, Justin Fields obviously has the dual threat factor to his game, but I mean, he's an inconsistent passer. He processes what he sees very slowly. Who knows who the Steelers will be when we meet him later down the line? But the Falcons, new quarterback Kirk Cousins, he went 16 for 26, 115 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, took 2 sacks, and he had a 59.0 passer rating. And again, I'm not just relying on the stats when I talk about this. And I'm glad you guys are back. I'm glad the chat is working. Thank you guys so much for being patient with that. I don't know what was going on. I guess YouTube was going through their own technical difficulty, but I'm glad the chat is working just fine. And I'm glad you guys are here. Make sure you smash that like button on the way in, and make sure you guys smash that like button on the way out. You're locked in to Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. Appreciate you for being here. But Kirk Cousins, 16 for 26, 115, on 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, took 2 sacks with a 59.0 passer rating. He was inefficient and he was ineffective. And if you ask me, he still don't look healthy, or he don't look fully comfortable in the pocket. We all know Kirk Cousins is coming off of a season-ending Achilles injury. He ended up signing a 4-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons for $180 million, $100 million guaranteed. They did draft Michael Penix in the first round. I haven't really been a fan of Atlanta's off-season decisions as it pertains to the quarterback position. I like what they've done defensively. I think the Atlanta defense is going to be good. And I'm glad we're catching them when we're catching them. But I think the Atlanta defense is going to be good. The Atlanta Falcons offense, though, I don't know how I feel about Kirk Cousins today. He looked very limited. He looked like his feet were stuck in the ground. He looked immobile. I understand Kirk Cousins has never been a quarterback to move around much. I get that. But he just looked like he couldn't move at all. They barely rolled him out. Kirk Cousins loves that bootleg play action. He loves that. But I watched that game, and Kirk Cousins really couldn't move a muscle. Ball placement was terrible. His internal clock was off. It just seemed like the Steelers were able to tee off. Now, granted, that Steelers defense is legitimate. That Steelers defense is legitimate. I'm not trying to minimize the opponent they went against. That Steelers defense is legitimate, right? But that Steelers offense is also pretty whack. So you ask yourself, how can I really gauge Atlanta? Right? Who are the Atlanta Falcons? And I actually had Atlanta being one of the better teams this year. I did. I thought Atlanta, and again, it's only week 1. I want to make that very, 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 very clear. It's only week 1. And who they are or who they were on Sunday, they may be a totally different team. Completely different. I think Atlanta is a talented team. I think they have a talented roster. I think they're talented on offense. They're talented on defense. They got talent sprinkled all over the place. But when I just look at Kirk Cousins, I don't see a quarterback who's fully back. I just don't. And Kirk Cousins can put numbers up on you. He can. You may beat Kirk Cousins, but he'll put numbers up on you, and he can beat you. And I'm going to get to your super chats, guys. Thank you so much for donating to the channel. It means a lot to me. I'm going to get to those in a second. I just want to get through some of these notes here. Yeah, so Kirk Cousins, again, 16 for 26, 115 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, took 2 sacks with the 59.0 passer rating. His interceptions were bad. I mean, Jalen Hurts' interceptions were bad too, but his were bad. And I have higher hopes for Jalen Hurts at this point versus Kirk Cousins, who's coming off of an Achilles injury. The Eagles are going to be back home. The Eagles are going to be in Lincoln Financial Field. They're not gonna have to worry about slippery grass. I think this is a game that the Philadelphia Eagles defense can definitely take that next step, build more confidence. They did some things that we were excited about in that game against Green Bay. And I think having a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, you should be able to get to this guy. But I also expect the Atlanta Falcons to make adjustments. Again, week 1, you ain't got much film to work with, but that game, that gave them a lot of stuff to talk about in the film room. So likely expect an entirely different game plan, expect an entirely different approach because of how bad it was. They're probably going to go back to Kirk Cousins' Minnesota Vikings film and really try to utilize what he does well. Remember, Atlanta has a new head coach, new OC, new DC, new quarterbacks, new everything. So they're still working some things out here. But this is a matchup that I think the Philadelphia Eagles ultimately will be in full control of. And then another thing, too. Well, you know what? Before I mention that, let me get to some of your comments real quick. Let me get to these super chats. Thank you guys again for supporting the show. Shizzo Flex with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you, brother. He says the Hurts careless turnovers need to stop. Take the easy plays. You never accept anything in the win that you wouldn't accept in the loss, point blank. I'm so glad you said that because we're going to talk about that a little bit more later on. We're going to talk a lot more about that later on. Trust and believe that, Shizzo Flex. Trust and believe. Davon Tyree with the $1.99 super chat. He said, Saquon, NFC Player of the Week, baby. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shout out to Saquon Barkley being named NFC Offensive Player of the Week. That's dope. That's fly. Proud of him. Great first day. Great first game to show the league what you're going to be about in this Philadelphia Eagles offense. It was a great outing by him. By every stretch of the imagination, he was the best player in football on offense in week 1. I can't think of a player who played better than him in week 1. I can't think of one. I know Rashid, right? I know what's my man name? Not Rashid Rice. Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed came pretty close. He had the 70+ yard touchdown, had the 33-yard run. But Saquon had 3 touchdowns to his 2, even though Jaden Reed had about 20 more yards. So I'm sure if Jaden Reed would have had 3 touchdowns, he probably would have been named Offensive Player of the Week because what he did, right? 2 of the best performers on offense in the NFC was in that Packers Green Bay game when it comes to Saquon and Jaden Reed for sure. Maybe you consider Baker Mayfield. He had a pretty good game against the Commanders. But the opponent, definitely matters as well. So, yeah, man, shout out to Saquon. Shout out to Saquon Barkley, man. The first of many accolades as a Philadelphia Eagle. Some people even have Saquon Barkley as a dark horse for Offensive Player of the Year. We'll see how that goes. We'll see. Infamous 2K says Michael Penix will start by week 7. I don't know, man. They have a lot of money tied up in Kirk Cousins, like a lot. It'd be different if it was like a 2-year deal or even a 3-year deal. They got 3 years worth of, if they paying him $180 million over 4 years, what is that? That's basically $45 million a year. So they basically have 2 seasons worth of money tied up with him, a season and some change. They can get out of that contract after year 2. Basically half of it is guaranteed. But I don't know if Michael Penix will be starting by week 7. I really don't think so. They just have too much money tied up into Kirk Cousins. Michael Penix is not seeing the field this year. All right, let's see here. So, yeah, some other things that stood out to me about the Atlanta Falcons in that week 1 game against the Steelers wasn't just Kirk Cousins' ineffectiveness. What also stood out to me was how much of a non-factor Drake London was and how Kyle Pitts had limited impact on the game. Look, again, Kirk Cousins, he looked stiff. Drake London was a non-factor. Kyle Pitts, he caught all 3 of his targets and he got one touchdown out of the deal, but he just wasn't a factor either. Only had 26 yards. And then Bijan Robinson, he was the only bright spot on the offense, if we're being honest. He had 111 total yards from scrimmage on 23 touches. Although he only averaged 3.8 yards per carry on his runs, and his longest run of the day was 13 yards. I mean, Bijan Robinson didn't find the end zone. The Falcons' offense just looked limited. They looked out of sorts. They lacked chemistry. Like it just looked like a mess. But regardless, it's week 1. Their defense looked good though. And just based off of what I've been seeing over the games I've saw, it seems like offenses are a little behind the defenses, but I think that's pretty normal. Offense is all about timing. Defense, you can spend a lot of your time going downhill. So yeah, the Atlanta Falcons defense, they look good. I think that's something that the Eagles got to pay attention to, right? You hold the Steelers to 18 points on all field goal attempts. In the Steelers offense, they struggled to put up points to begin with. And they were led by a boom or bust Justin Fields. You never know what you're going to get from Justin Fields on any given Sunday at this point. We don't know what he is. We don't really know the limitations to his game per se. But on that Falcons defense, you gotta respect the names they got over there. Like I said, they got talent sprinkled all over the place. They got in the secondary, very talented. Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, AJ Terrell, right? And then in that front 7, they're led by Matthew Judon and Grady Jarrett. So they're talented on the defense side of the ball. They've spent a lot of money building that defense. So this can't be a game where Jalen Hurts is once again lackadaisical with the football. Because I expect, like I said, that was week 1. We only can go off what we've seen, and the offense may have their own concerns, but it's only week 1. I expect the Falcons to be much better this week. I expect them to do a lot of soul searching about how that offense is going to look. I fully expect them to do whatever they can to put Kirk Cousins in comfortable situations so he can deliver the ball. But I do believe Kirk Cousins can be had coming off of that Achilles injury. See, it goes beyond just being recovered physically. He has to recover mentally. That was one of the most serious injuries he's ever had. That was some of the most time he's ever lost. Some of the most time he's been away from the game. Now he's in a new team, a new city, new offense, new coaches. On top of that, he has to restore his confidence in not just his body, but restore his confidence in his offensive line. New guys in front of him blocking. New guys. Kirk Cousins has to reattain that confidence in his body again. To trust the ground that he's standing on, planting his foot, right? You know, when you tear that ACL or when you rupture an Achilles, when you see that defender get a little too close to your legs, it throws you off a little bit. You may not put as much oomph in those throws. You may not be able to put enough oomph in those throws. Sir Kirk Cousins, we'll see who he is this coming Monday night. We'll see. The Eagles have 10 days off from the game, and I believe the Falcons are going to have 8 days off from their game. I just think this is a game the Philadelphia Eagles can definitely win, but you don't want to be careless with the ball. The Eagles cannot go into this game and take the Falcons lightly, even though I think the Falcons can be had. Even though I believe that, you can't take them lightly. Let me get to this super chat real quick. My man Infamous 2K with the $4.99 super chat. He says, excuses. ATL has a lot on defense, but Hurts has a lot on offense. It's a fair fight. Jalen doesn't get the excuse of playing a good defense. What are you talking about? I'm not sure who's making excuses. Maybe you're not talking to me per se, but I didn't think I was making excuses. I think I was just acknowledging who the opponent was. That's all. Like if we were playing the Commanders, I would say, hey, look, they got Bobby Wagner on that side. They got Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. You know, you got to watch those guys. You know, not really worried about Emmanuel Forbes. Not worried about him. But all those other guys, that front seven, you got to watch that front seven for sure. But their secondary, chef's kiss. So I'm gonna always be honest. I'm gonna always keep it real. You feel what I'm saying? I thought I was just acknowledging that they have talent on that side of the ball. You know, just how I acknowledged that the Packers, they had Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, Xavier McKinney, right? Quay Walker. They got talent on that side of the ball. They just got to put it together. I think that's been a problem for Green Bay. They can't make the pieces fit, or they can't get the most out of the pieces. See, individually, the Packers' pieces are very good, but the sum of their parts, not good at all. Not good. And the Atlanta Falcons, again, only gave up 18 points, all field goals. That red zone defense was legitimate. Thank you again, Infamous, for the super chat, my friend. Really do appreciate you, brother. Really appreciate you. So, yeah, the Falcons, they got talent. Don't get it twisted on both sides of the ball. Offensive line is pretty decent, pretty solid. They got talent. They brought in, who was the guy they signed? Darnell Mooney. They signed Mooney, right, from the Bears. They got Bijan Robinson. You drafted Drake London and Kyle Pitts. You feel what I'm saying? You got Ray McLeod. For some reason, that offense couldn't get it going. Couldn't get it going, not one bit. Make sure you guys smash that like button. We got 42 likes, 95 people, 96 people watching the live stream. Let's try to get those numbers up, y'all. Make sure y'all smash that like button. Make sure you stay locked in on the show. Where was I? Yes. The Atlanta Falcons. You can't take them lightly, right? Because there's something about that team. Again, I had the Atlanta Falcons actually being a good team this year. I have them winning the NFC South. I still do. I don't want to move off of that so soon. I understand Baker Mayfield had the game he had, and Derek Carr and the Saints had the game they had, but I still got the Atlanta Falcons winning that division. I feel like they're just the more talented team in their division. But Atlanta seems like a team that can put up 10 points one week and then drop 30 the following week. Tell me if I'm off in that assessment. Because again, Kirk Cousins, as limited as I've explained him to be, and how questionable I think he is coming off that injury, and based off what I saw, Kirk Cousins can still put some numbers up. He still knows how to play quarterback. He's not mobile. He's even less mobile now. But the Falcons give me that kind of team. They can drop 10 or 13 points one week, and then the following week they get you for 27. They get you for 30 or 33 or something like that. That seems like where they are right now. I think the Atlanta Falcons have to learn how to be consistent. And also, they got to learn how to play with a quarterback. My man Infamous, once again, with the super chat. Thank you, Infamous. I appreciate you, brother. Let's see what you got to say. He said, and he quotes, I think he's quoting me here. He said they spent a lot of money building that defense, so this can't be a game where Jalen Hurts is lackadaisical with the football. That's the pre-excuse for Hurts. I'm not making. Come on, man. Infamous. You lucky you pay for this. You lucky you pay for this, because I would have ignored the hell out of this. I'm not making excuses. That's the facts. What are we talking about here? Since when did mentioning facts mean that you were trying to give somebody an out? I think Jalen Hurts is going to have. First of all, I didn't even get all the way through my notes yet to really break down my perspective on Jalen Hurts, but I'll placate you to this. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a way cleaner game on Monday night. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a significantly cleaner game. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to go out there and try to overdo it. I think Jalen Hurts is going to take what they give him, allow his playmakers to make the plays. I think that game one, I think week 1 and how it went and how quickly things kind of got out of hand a little bit. I think he realized, yeah, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. That was Jalen Hurts really put his team in a compromising situation. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself because I got stuff that I want to get into. But overall, I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a cleaner game. That's just my opinion, though. This is my opinion. All right, let's see. And thank you again, Infamous, with the $9.99 super chat, brother. I really do appreciate you. Let's see where we at. Okay. Let's read some of these well, hold on. Let me get this real quick. So, yeah, Atlanta Falcons, entirely new coaching staff, new quarterback, new culture shift. It may take the Atlanta Falcons some time to settle into their season. But that's why I believe this is a good matchup for the Eagles right now. The Eagles are likely catching the Falcons at the right time before the Falcons realize how good they actually can be. Because the Falcons can actually be good. They can. But I think the Eagles are catching them at the right time before they actually know how good they can be. Same thing with the Green Bay Packers. Well, Green Bay, no, they know how good they can be. They took it to the playoffs last year. But they still did what they did. Just that Green Bay matchup was a perfect tune-up, a perfect matchup to get the Eagles season started, find out where you are, test your mettle. I think the Atlanta Falcons game is another well-timed game. Another well-timed game. You're going up against a talented secondary. You're going to be against another team that has pieces that can catch you slipping. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, those guys are talented. Those guys are very talented. Raymond McLeod can get open, things like that. So this is going to be a game that I think the Philadelphia Eagles ultimately will win. I think this is going to be a game where they control it for the most part. But again, you just don't want to be careless with guys like Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. Those guys are ball hawks. They have a ton of experience. They know exactly what to do. There's no surprises you can throw at those guys. It's just that simple.